league overseas, there's one who stands apart. He's virtually there under presidential decree. Mark Viduka is an imposing striker and an important member of our national team, plus the under-23 Olyroos bound for Atlanta. He spent the last season in Croatia. His appearance there was inspired by the country's president, who desperately wanted the young Australian to play for his club. Mark felt he could hardly say no. Paul Lockyer reports.
His pass gets to Tiato in space. All of a sudden is Viduka, and there it is, Mark Viduka, Australia's third, and finally the drought is broken.
No one could ever question Mark Viduka's commitment to the green and gold, which this highly talented player has been wearing with pride since his teenage years.
But in the end, the quality of a very, very good player shines through.
The hardest thing to do in soccer is score goals, and he's got a gift of scoring goals. I think he'll be the best striker Australia's ever produced.
At just 20, Mark Viduka has already achieved enormous success. Top goal scorer in his first 2 seasons of senior soccer in Australia, Player of the Year in his second season. He quickly became one of our hottest prospects.
So when did you first notice that there was a champion in the making in your household?
When he started liking balls and kicking them around the house, breaking windows and stuff like that.
I noticed when he was 18 months old that he'd really loved the game.
18 months?
I didn't know that he was going to be playing for Australia. I didn't even think of that.
Mark's Croatian-born parents instilled their passion for soccer in their son. By age 4, he was demanding to go to training.
And I took him there, and all the other kids were about 4 years older than him. And once they took the ball off him, he stopped in the middle of the training field and started crying.
A year later, though, 5-year-old Mark was not only holding down a place in an under-9 side, he was one of their top goal scorers. High expectations have followed him ever since. He felt under enormous pressure when he made the big time.
On for Viduka, he's onside, the finish! Mark Viduka, 13th goal in his 13th appearance this season.
There's still heaps of pressure to score, especially players in my position as a striker and being paid, good money.
Mark Viduka is one of our highest paid overseas players, on a 2-year contract to play in Croatia. A deal that came about under extraordinary circumstances, when the country's president, Franjo Tuđman, made a controversial visit to Australia a year ago in the face of Serbian opposition. It was at the height of the conflict in old Yugoslavia.
I was at home one day and I hear the phone ring and somebody goes, do you want to have lunch with the president? I go, I don't know, why not?
How surprised were you to get a phone call from the president and say, come and have lunch, I want to discuss your son's soccer future in Croatia?
I couldn't believe it. And he heard about Mark back home. And he heard that Mark was playing for Australia, and he said, I want this boy for his club.
At the time I wasn't very happy because of the war, of the situation, and I was just afraid for him and all that.
When the president of a country rings you up and says, hey, I want you to play for my soccer team, though, it's pretty hard to say no, isn't it?
Oh, it was, but it's very hard to say no. But in the end, I'm happy with my decision.
Skoko again. Viduka!
Mark turned down several other lucrative offers from European clubs, charting his own future over lunch with President Tuđman for the Croatia Zagreb club.
You negotiated that contract yourself?
Yeah. There was no one else involved, really. It was just me and him. So,
you and the president?
Yeah, that's right.
Sitting down and negotiating your soccer future?
If you can say it that way, yeah.
Well, it's been reported that you got $500,000 over 2 years. Is that about right?
$500,000 over 2 years. No.
Bit more than that?
Yeah, more than that.
Want to give us a ballpark figure?
No, I don't want to give you nothing. It's a secret.
The Australian Footballer of the Year, Mark Viduka, has left the safe confines of his home country to play here.
Recruited by the president, Mark immediately found himself under the spotlight.
He came with a big name, and they expected a lot of him.
His parents had exposed him to the Croatian culture from birth, but Mark was still very much a Melbourne boy, engulfed in culture shock.
The president promised everything. The president can't be there to look after Mark. He's got other things to do. When he got into the fry, it's a different thing.
He has to cook, he has to clean for himself, he has to do all these things.
He hasn't got his mum there to do all that.
No.
Yeah. Well,
Getting used to the lifestyle was difficult, you know, getting used to the new team, new atmosphere. That's basically, you know, what's the hardest thing to get used to.
Mark found it difficult too, adjusting to the Croatian style of soccer.
The thing is, they play a really different style to us. They like a lot of touches, and I really like the direct stuff, you know.
In Croatia, the build-up is very slow, and Mark doesn't really get a lot of work to do, and he doesn't get many chances a game.
And a well-placed pass allowed Viduka to thump this one home.
But he made the most of the chances that did come his way.
This time, Viduka given the opportunity to display his skill in the air.
In this game, as the crowd chanted their support for him, Viduka brought up a hat-trick with a penalty shot.
There was a bit of an adjustment sort of period for me. Considering that, you know, I thought I did quite well. I scored 12 goals in the season, and I was happy with that.
And the most important of those 12 goals was scored by Mark as his patron, President Tujman, looked on, to clinch victory in the biggest match of the season against arch-rivals from Split.
Viduka 1-0 vodi Croatia, to je...
Last Wednesday night, as his family watched in Melbourne, the new hero of Zagreb was back performing in Sydney. Playing alongside the best of our overseas and Australian-based players, it was Viduka who set up the first goal scored by fellow Olympic team member Paul Agostino.
Ball off, there's the shot, there's the goal from Paul Agostino.
They hold high hopes for the Atlanta Olyroos.
I think we've got a good team, and we can surprise any team. If it all comes together in the games, I think we would be a tough team to beat.
After the Olympics, Mark Viduka returns to Croatia to fulfil his contract with the president for one more season. His family and his former club, the Melbourne Knights, with its strong Croatian past, could hardly be prouder. The club's old guard will remember Mark's patriotic gestures towards their beloved Croatian flag. He says he was unashamedly playing to the crowd.
They like that sort of stuff, and, you know, to get into the good books with them, that's why I did it.
But Mark's opposed to Soccer Australia's plans to remove all national flags from soccer jerseys as part of their moves to de-ethnicize the game.
The ethnics, you know, they're the ones that really started this game off in Australia, and to have them change their whole sort of the whole lot is really tough for them.
ethnics have supported the game for nearly 50 years. And now Soccer Australia wants to brush the ethnics aside before they establish a ground within the Australian community.
So if they de-ethnicize soccer in Australia, what will happen to the game?
I tell you, within 2 years, soccer is dead in Australia.
Whatever course the game takes in the battle by administrators to expand soccer beyond its ethnic roots, it's all academic to Mark Viduka. A product of one of the world's richest soccer nurseries, after his contract runs out with Croatia, Mark's in a position to dictate his terms to the best teams in Europe.